Well, here we are, June 23rd, 2022. I'm Larissa. Um, last night I was watching some of that Stanley Cup, and those announcers, that Mr. Chelios and that Mr. Messier. I saw you fellas play for reals. I did. Oh my goodness gracious. Look at you. Look at you guys. How many Messiers they got in the NHL these days, huh? Hockey. Hockey, you crazy hockey players with your big old beards and your masks and your knives on your feet. Run around with weapons on the ice, smacking the shit out of each other. Hockey. Hockey's good times, right? Yeah. So, the other day I was talking about squeedos. I hate squeedos. I killed that squeedo. The squeedos are out to get me now. And when the squeedos are out to get you, you can't go to bed naked. Or even just in your gut cheeks, because they will come and they will bite you on your ass. I got a big old squeedo bite on my butt cheek. Yep, I found it this morning. Like, why is my ass cheek itching? A big old squeedo bite. It's almost as big as another butt cheek. No, it's not that big, but it's big. It's itchy. I put some stuff on it, some Cortisone, some tea tree oil. They go away, the squeedos. They bit me on my butt and they bit me on my boobie. It's a song in Girl Scouts. Pink pajama song. Wear my pink pajamas in the summer when it's hot. I wear my flannel nighties in the winter when it's not. And sometimes in the springtime, sometimes in the fall. I jump right in between the sheets with nothing on at all. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, what's it to ya? Balmy breezes blowing right through ya with nothing on at all. There's like 6 verses. It's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. Squeedos biting my ass. Well, let's get down to it here. So, Patent Leather Jean, 2020 Lenten Season Novella, an original work of fiction by Larissa Dahroug. Me. Chapter 4. Sometimes it snows in April. On the front passenger seat next to him, Robin kept an eye on the bag of egg rolls, shrimp fried rice, and Chinese broccoli as he slowed at intersections and took corners. A bottle of Grey Goose rolled back and forth in a bag on the floor in front of the seat. Wei's was the best Chinese place in town. Even the guys that periodically came over on business from China liked going there. Wei's grandma lived with him and made strange-looking dishes with mysterious ingredients and strong aromas that were evidently very authentically Chinese, more so than the broccoli beef or the sweet and sour pork. Wei had a 3-bedroom apartment above the restaurant, and his grandma kept a greenhouse garden in a small backyard area. The first time Robin and Jean had dinner at Wei's, a table of Chinese-speaking guests who appeared to be celebrating something were seated next to them. Robin had made a face when Wei brought out a steaming platter of something smelly and placed it in the center of the rowdy table. The Chinese guests dug into the platter with gusto. Wei had caught Robin's grimace and laughed, then came over to take their order. Taking out a pen and tablet, Wei had asked immediately, with a totally straight face, nodding toward the now almost empty plate, "You want one of that?" Robin had been embarrassed and blushed to his ears. Jean stifled a laugh, and Wei laughed loudly, grabbing his belly until Robin laughed too. Then he introduced himself as the owner and politely explained how the dish was a regional delicacy that his grandmother made for guests visiting from China. He told Robin not to order it. He promised he wouldn't like it. "I don't know," Jean had retorted. "Looks like it was delicious." But she wasn't serious, and they stuck to their Chinese restaurant standby favorites, egg rolls, shrimp fried rice, and Chinese broccoli with black mushrooms and oyster sauce. Other than them and the rowdy Chinese party, the restaurant had been empty that night. When Wei brought out the food, he sat down with Robin and Jean and opened a beer while they enjoyed their meal. The 3 got to be fast friends. Before they left, Wei showed them his grandma's garden of exotic Chinese vegetables and herbs and told Robin to bring any of his business associates from China for an unexpected treat anytime. He just needed to call in the morning and let him know what province they were visiting from so his grandma could customize their meal. The first time he hosted guys from China, he took Wei up on his very generous offer. It had made the difference in the week of meetings and helped Robin sign a very lucrative production contract for exhaust systems for a group of smelting plants in Guizhou. Robin and Jean had been regulars ever since, and Wei's grandma was always sending Jean home with some strange-smelling tea or salve. Jean swore the stuff always worked. Robin was skeptical, but gracious. Now the car was filled with the aroma of a good dinner. Robin was acutely aware of how hungry he was. Korean food wasn't his favorite, and on his trip, almost everything had been super spicy. Plus, as a joke, for the first 5 days, his business associates had only taken him to places where insects were the main course. The plant had been in a more rural area, and it wasn't until they made it back to Seoul that he had been able to find something he found more palatable. There was a McDonald's next to his hotel. A Big Mac and fries had never tasted so good. He was happy to be back stateside where he could have a regular meal. As he turned the corner onto Larkspur, he had to stop short to keep from hitting Connor, the kid from up the street. He looked like he was in a hurry and wasn't paying attention to where he was going, riding his bike down the wrong side of the road. Robin thought of Connor as a kid, but he really wasn't a kid anymore. He must have been at least 24 or 25 now and was still living with his widowed father 5 houses up the street from Robin and Jean's place. When Robin and Jean bought the house 10 years earlier, Connor had been the local high school star pitcher. He had hoped to get a ride to MSU for ball, but his grades weren't good enough to get into State's English department, and his senior year's season stats hadn't been great. It was the year his mother had been diagnosed with breast cancer, and she didn't make it. Connor had almost flunked out entirely and even spent a couple months in J building at Children's Village. Jean had taken meals over a couple times a week while Gloria was going through chemo, and Robin had helped Pat get a good deal on a new handicap-accessible van. Connor had just slipped through the cracks. No one had been able to really reach him after his mom passed, and Pat wouldn't make eye contact with anyone on the street anymore. Something was up with Connor lately. Even Robin could see that. Over the past 6 months, the once strong-looking kid had become gaunt and frail-looking and always had big circles under his eyes. His clothes hung on him like sagging skin, and he always seemed to have a different bike. Connor muttered something under his breath as the tires of Robin's Grand Cherokee screeched a little against the pavement. Robin threw his arm at the Chinese food to keep it from tumbling off the seat and onto the floor. Pulling into his driveway, Robin felt relieved to be home and a little apprehensive about the state in which he was going to find Jean. He had thought she sounded defeated and small on the phone earlier, but reflecting on it, he wasn't so sure. Was she still angry with him? He felt bad about giving her such a hard time over the camera, but it wasn't like Jean to hold a grudge. Something else was going on. It sure as hell had something to do with his mother. That didn't take a genius to figure out. He couldn't understand why his mother was so mean to Jean, nor could he understand why Jean couldn't just let things slide off her back anymore. Things had gotten markedly worse since his 40th birthday. Jean's reaction had confused him. She wasn't a bitter woman by any stretch of the imagination, but she wasn't nearly as sweet as she had once been either. Women made no sense to him at all. Robin put the vehicle in park, turned off the engine, and got out. He opened the trunk and dug out his carry-on and briefcase. He slung the briefcase over his shoulder, then opened the passenger door of the car and scooped up the takeout and vodka. Circling back around the trunk, he slammed it shut and pulled the wheeled carry-on along behind him with his free hand. As he mounted the stairs up to the porch, he saw the pile of dog shit waiting there for him, and his heart sank. Pushing the extended handle back into the suitcase, he sighed and picked it up as he lumbered to the front door, taking care to step around the poop. The door was unlocked. Jean was seated on the couch in the front sitting room with her face in her hands, rubbing eyes pink and puffy from crying. Sitting the takeout and vodka on the coffee table in front of her, Robin sat his briefcase and suitcase to the side and knelt down in front of her, wrapping his arms around her shoulders. She let him hold her for a moment, then pushed his arms away and stood up. Robin stood up as well. "So did you see it?" Jean asked. "What, the poop?" Robin asked ridiculously. "Yes." The poop. Did you see it? She asked again. Well, yeah, it was kind of hard to miss. What's with the poop? Robin asked, and Jean began to cry again, but they were hot, angry tears, and her face became red as a beet as she shook her fists and began to spit out her words between her tears at a helpless-looking Robin. What's with the poop? What's with the poop? Jean screamed, then became calmer as she attempted to gather herself to continue. Well, dear Robin, I certainly didn't take a dump on the porch, and we don't have a dog. So it must have been left there by my mystery door-knocking friend. You know, the one that everyone seems to think is a figment of my imagination or just some silly neighborhood kid. Whoever it is, they're pretty sophisticated. They figured out how to hack into the camera and turn it off in the morning. Almost every morning while you were gone, at the same time, they turn off the camera, then knock at the door and run away. And you know what? Jean stopped to catch her breath. What, babe? Robin looked at her apologetically. Saying anything wasn't the right thing to do because now Jean erupted. What, babe? I'll tell you what. I think that crazy old bat down the street and your mother are somehow behind it. I think they're trying to drive me crazy and get me locked up, Jean said forcefully. Robin was taken aback. Now, come on, Jean. My mother is nutty and annoying, but she'd never do anything to hurt you, and Gertrude is just a lonely old widow. She doesn't even drive or have a cell phone. What could they possibly do to hurt you, and why? Jean wanted to hit Robin, but instead she grabbed the vodka off the table and turned to the kitchen to pour herself a drink. Robin picked up the takeout and followed her into the kitchen. Jean had a tall water glass out on the counter, filled with 3 large ice cubes. She was pouring a double shot of vodka over the cubes. A can of flavored carbonated water was next to the glass, already open. Jean finished pouring the soda over the vodka and took a drink before turning to meet Robin's gaze. She raised the glass from her lips toward him. You want one? She asked through clenched teeth. No, I'll grab a beer. Robin sat the food on the kitchen island between he and his wife, opened the fridge, and pulled out a Goose Island honker ale. When he turned around, Jean was leaning against the counter with half her drink gone. Her head was tipped to one side, and she was considering Robin with an expression he wasn't familiar with seeing on his wife's face. It looked like contempt. He smiled nervously at her and took a swig of his beer, holding it up in the air first in a ceremonial gesture of cheers. Jean took a deep breath, then sat her drink on the island and began to open the bag of takeout. She looked into the bag as she spoke to Robin. You really think your mother would never do anything to hurt me? She placed the containers on the granite and started to open them. Are you serious? She keeps calling the lunatic police on me. She keeps telling them I'm in a danger to myself and those around me. Jean took an egg roll out of one of the containers and stuffed the end in her mouth as she looked at Robin. Robin grabbed an egg roll too and pointed at his wife with it as he spoke. She's just worried about you is all. No one was hurt. He stuffed the egg roll in his mouth. Jean finished chewing the bite in her mouth and stared directly into Robin's eyes with a flat, calm glare. That is one of the most cruel and ignorant and horrible things you have ever said to me. I most certainly was hurt. Do you realize they sent a mental health goon out here today when I called the police about the pile of vandalism on the porch? Do you realize the cops don't take me seriously? And you know why? Because you don't. And your cunt of a mother and her sidekick down there calls them and tells them I'm out in the front yard in my robe talking to myself. You're an asshole. Your mother's most certainly trying to hurt me. Jean aggressively took another bite of her egg roll and washed it down with the vodka soda. Robin looked at his beer. Don't call my mother a cunt. Okay, I'll call her a satanic witch then, or demonically possessed. Jean, don't do that. Don't do what? No one else is standing up for me, certainly not you. You're not even here most of the time. You knew when we started dating that I traveled for work. Shut up. I don't give a shit about the travel. I like when you travel. I can get things done. I'm not upset about the travel. It's the disrespect and total denial about what a horrible person your mother is, and how she abuses me, and how you do nothing about it but make excuses for her. And now there's this. I hope whoever is doing this shit kills me, so all you jerks feel bad about treating me like I'm crazy instead of someone on the receiving end of criminal abuse. Jean grabbed her glass, poured in more vodka, brushed angrily past Robin, and grabbed another can of carbonated water from the fridge. Before storming out of the room and up the stairs, she turned to him saying, You go clean up this shit. I've had all the shit I can handle for a while. Welcome home. Robin watched helplessly as she walked away from him. He heard a door slam upstairs. In her studio, Jean approached the piece in progress currently on her easel. The underpainting was now almost all covered with background and middle ground. Holding her glass to her heart, she stood back and stared at the composition. This was the most dangerous time in the process, laying in the foreground. There were a couple hazy areas where the figures were going to be placed. She looked over her shoulder as she heard Robin lumber up the stairs with his bag and into the bedroom down the hall. She heard the toilet flush and the shower start to run. Turning back to the painting, she sat her drink on a side table and picked up a graphite stick. With a few strokes, she lightly outlined a simple armature of two figures, one reclining, the other standing, leaning over the reclining figure. The muted tones of the background had been the right choice. This series was totally different choice of palette from any of the work she had been doing for the past few years, and it was a welcome break visually. Still, though, looking at the piece was strange. She sometimes felt like she was working on someone else's painting in progress. There was a gentle knock on the door. Jean didn't turn around. The door opened softly, and Robin entered silently, waiting for his wife to turn to him. She didn't. "Wow, that's really nice. Different, but really nice," Robin offered softly. "Thanks." Jean didn't turn back to look at him. Instead, she fixed her stare on the outline where the figures were emerging. "This new series is really something. Has Morton said he'll show them?" Robin asked hopefully. "Not exactly. He's supposed to come over Monday afternoon to look at what I've completed so far." Jean motioned to her drying rack on the far wall where four other paintings were standing, separated from a stack of older work. "Well, he's crazy if he doesn't take them. These are all some of the best work I've seen you do yet." "Don't try to butter me up. I'm mad for good reason. Mort is no crazier than I am, whether he shows the paintings or not. I'm really sick of people throwing that word around like it doesn't mean anything. Your mother is crazy. Like, for real, crazy. I think she has a serious personality disorder. Me? I'm having hot flashes and night sweats. I'm just middle-aged." Jean still hadn't turned to look at Robin. He now approached his wife and gently placed his hands on her shoulders. Her arms were wrapped around her waist. She brought her right hand to touch his left hand resting on her left shoulder. Robin took her hand and guided her around to face him. "I'm sorry. You're right. You're not crazy, and I'm happy to be home with you." Robin kissed Jean on the forehead and turned, leaving her in the room alone with her work. Jean followed, closing the door behind him before turning back to the easel and picking up her palette and palette knife to start mixing pigments. 2 hours later, the figures were done, and Jean went back downstairs to find her husband in his sweats, hair still damp, nodding off to sleep on the couch with the Tigers game on the TV, and a plate with the remnants of fried rice and broccoli on the coffee table in front of him. "I finished the figures," Jean said in a bored tone. "What?" Robin shook his head slightly, looking up at her, smiling. "I finished the figures. I'm not sure if the piece is done yet or not, though. I need to sleep on it." Robin patted the seat cushion next to him. "Come sit with me and tell me about the cops." Jean let out a big breath and asked, "Is there any left?" Nodding at the almost empty plate on the table. "Yeah, lots. It's on the island. I got a plate out for you. It's right in there." Robin nodded with his chin toward the kitchen, and Jean turned in that direction. "Bring me another beer when you come out." "Okay," Jean called over her shoulder. She reemerged with chopsticks and a plate full of rice, broccoli, and another egg roll in one hand, and 2 beers nestled between the fingers of her other hand. She offered the beers toward Robin, who took them both and sat Jean's on the table as she situated herself on the couch with her plate. "So are we winning?" she asked as she stuffed some broccoli in her mouth. "Do the Tigers ever win?" Robin replied. "Sometimes," Jean laughed. "Yeah, and sometimes it snows in April, but not often. Even Connor might have a chance with the Tigers this year." Robin laughed in return. "Now tell me about these cops and the poop," Jean spoke, while still chewing her broccoli and covering her mouth with her hand. "I haven't thought about Connor playing ball in years. That poor boy, what a shame. His mother was such a nice woman. I saw poor Pat the other day at the market buying frozen dinners. I came home and baked a cake and took it over and left it on the front step like I did with dinner when Gloria was doing chemo. I wrapped it in a brand new tea towel. He stuffed the tea towel in the mailbox today. He could have kept it." Robin rubbed his wife's knee. That was just one of the 1.5 million reasons he loved Jean. "Yeah, I almost ran Connor over turning down the street. The boy doesn't look well." "Really? I haven't seen him in months. I thought maybe he had finally moved out," Jean said between bites. "No, I see him almost every morning when I'm coming home. I see him almost every evening when I'm coming home. He always seems to have a different bike, and man, he's gotten real skinny. He doesn't look good at all. Cancer can be genetic, right?" Jean looked at her husband quizzically. Yeah, that's why I wanted you to get that BRAC test after your dad passed, but I haven't seen Connor. I didn't realize he wasn't well. Well, you might not recognize him if you did see him. He's real skinny, and the circles under his eyes are huge. He looks older than you or I. Older than his dad, for that matter, Robin exclaimed. Huh. That's terrible. I wonder if Gertrude knows anything about it. Oh, I'm sure she does. She knows everyone's business, and if she doesn't, somehow she finds out, Robin laughed. That's exactly right, and that's why I think she and your mother has something to do with this dog shit business. Between bites of dinner, Jean told Robin everything that had happened, down to and including Gert's crystal light, and Robin told Jean about the flight and the old woman and the girl with the crooked teeth. Then Robin played the messages from his mother for Jean. Jean grit her teeth, and her face started to turn red again. Robin brushed the hair from her eye and apologized once more. You're right. Something isn't right, and my mother is crazy, Robin admitted somberly. She's not just crazy, she's dangerous. For crying out loud, I went to that therapist for a year to deal with that mugging. Shit, everyone who works down in Greektown would benefit from having someone to talk to that way, Jean stated matter-of-factly. You're right, I'll talk to her. What the fuck are you going to say that you haven't said already? Rob, we need to get some real distance from her. I'm starting to think we need to sell the house and move. She's down there at Gertrude's every other day, and even when she's not down there, Gert watches and calls her with every little detail. I've seen her peeping through the drapes. It's like Gladys and Bewitched, only Abner's dead. Now that's funny. You know, I'm pretty sure Gertrude doesn't like Jews, Robin laughed. Was Gladys's character Jewish? Yeah, pretty sure. Wasn't their last name Kravitz? Okay, whatever. Either way, Gert is a toady turd for your mom, and I'm sick of being in her line of sight. If you die and leave me a widow, I'm moving to the UP. With so much militia up there, I'm sure people will keep to themselves and don't spy around on each other. Jean was only half joking. If you become a Youper, you better learn how to gut a fish and dig a ditch. Robin was still joking. Jean put her now empty plate down and slapped his upper arm. I'm serious, Rob. I'm sick of that nosy old bitch down there. I like this house, but we could get something with more character and more land out closer to the airport. Plus, it would be that much farther from your mother. Jean slapped her thigh. Better yet, we could go buy a block or two in Detroit and build a fortress. Your mother would never come near. She hates black people, especially Detroit black people. Jean was starting to like this idea. Robin frowned. Jean, that's taking it a bit far. We could never afford all the renovations and demolition we'd need to do if we bought that much property in Detroit. Besides, remember what happened to Stu? He's black and they still stole everything from him, including the fixtures he had installed in the walls, and killed his dog just because he was born over 8 Mile. Do you want to need a gun just to get your mail? There was more to the story, but Robin wasn't exaggerating about the fixtures and the dog. Guys had ripped out all the fixtures Stu had installed and shot his dog, but Stu had also moved in all flashy with a Camaro and a Miata in the driveway and that giant diamond stud earring. Cops said it was like rubbing the neighbors' faces in the fact that they were living on mayo sandwiches during the week and Church's chicken on Sundays. Jean turned down her bottom lip in a fake pout. Come on, you scared of D? The real question is, are you scared of this D? Robin laughed, using both index fingers to point to his crotch. Jean giggled. Shut up. You were half asleep when I came down here. You and I both know you'll be sawing logs before you get your pants off. That D can wait until your brain has had at least one night's rest on Detroit time. Robin chuckled and finished his beer. Getting up to get another, he spoke over his shoulder. Yeah, you're right. True that. You need anything in here while I'm up? Just bring the bottle of vodka and a can of bubbly water and a fresh glass with cubes in it, please, Jean shouted after him. Okay, Robin yelled from the kitchen. Jean tucked her feet up under herself on the couch and turned towards the Tigers game. It was the bottom of the ninth. Detroit was up to bat. Bases were loaded and the score was tied. Jean squealed with delight. Robin came back in with a bottle of beer in his mouth and Jean's items in his hands. He sat the vodka glass and can on the table and pulled the bottle from his lips. What's up, squealer? He asked Jean. Tigers might actually win one. Jean nodded towards the screen just as there was a knock at the door. Are you expecting one? Expecting someone? Robin asked Jean. Fuck off. Of course not, Jean replied. Go look at the peephole first. Robin approached the door and squinted through the peephole. He turned abruptly toward Jean and mouthed the words, "My mom," at Jean. Jean's face froze. Then she threw her arms up in the air in mock surrender. Robin raced to her side and whispered in her ear, "I'm not going to let her in. Just let me take care of this." Jean whispered back, "Okay, but I'm going to listen, and if she does anything stupid, I'm getting a knife." She was joking, but only a little. If Joan pulled anything crazy, she just might dig her eyes out. "Did you get the poop?" Jean asked him. Robin turned to her and smiled a wicked-looking smile. "No," he mouthed. Then he turned and cracked the door only enough to stuff his face through the opening. Jean could hear Joan scuffling on the porch. She turned the TV down again. Joan's shrill voice cut through the living room. "Robbie, sweetie, I've been so worried. Oh, what is this filth at your door? Did Jeannie have an accident?" Jean watched the door, ready to pounce on the beast just beyond. "Mom, that's uncalled for. I'm not even going to answer that. I've told you countless times. Please call before coming over. I just got home from Korea, and I'm tired," Robin said flatly. "Oh, Robbie, I'm so glad you're safe. No wonder Jeannie has been having so much trouble. You've been out of town, and she can't take care of herself. Is she okay? Did you get my messages? Have you called that Dr. Shelton?" Joan's voice sounded forced and fake. "Mother, there is nothing wrong with Jean. Yes, I've been out of town, and I can smell that you've been drinking. Are you planning on driving home? Where's your car?" Robin was starting to get angry. Jean was pleased. "Wait, me? Drink? You know I don't even know what alcohol tastes like," Joan lied. Robin knew it was a lie, too. "My car's at Mrs. Donovan's. I will drive home when I please. But first, I wish you'd let me in to see everything is okay. And what is this pile of filth on your porch?" Joan insisted. Robin pushed Joan away from the door. "Some neighborhood brat thought it would be funny, I guess. Now go back to Gertrude's before you really step in it. I've told you, you have to call before you visit," Robin said sternly. "Robbie, that's just silly. Why can't a mother visit her son whenever she wants?" Joan cried. "Because this mother is rude and pushy, and I just got home after a long trip and want to be with my wife," Robin bellowed, pointing at his mother in the face. Joan gasped, grabbing at her heart. "Don't play those overly dramatic games with me, Mom. Go back to Gertrude's and finish your vodka or whatever you two are drinking and leave us be for the night. I'll call you tomorrow. I'm tired and I want to be with my wife." Robin stepped back into the house and closed the door in Joan's face. Joan was not happy. She continued to shout, "Robbie, I'm just a worried mother. Come now, open the door. Let me in." Joan stomped and huffed and pounded on the door one more time before stepping back and storming back up the street to Gertrude's. Robin and Jean watched her slip in Gertrude's front door and sat back down on the couch without a word, just in time to see the Tigers actually win a game. Let's see how many pages are in the next chapter. All right, 10 pages, we'll do it. Chapter 5, Special Order. Sylvie slammed the door of the Mercedes behind her. Mohan got out and clicked the trunk open with the fob on his keychain. Dursic grabbed her bag and followed Sylvie as she stomped up the front stairs of the house. The traffic into El Segundo was horrible, and Sylvie needed a cigarette. Mohan met her at the front door with his keys and fumbled a bit, trying to hurry to open it for her. Sylvie grumbled and snatched her bag out of Dursic's hands, digging for her crumpled pack of Benson and Hedges. Finding the pack, she pulled a slightly bent, long cigarette out and stuck it between her lips, then snapped her fingers at Dursic, who pulled out a gold Zippo from his pocket and lit it for her. Mohan didn't allow smoking in his car. It was the only rule he was able to enforce upon Sylvie, his business partner of the last 25 years. "I don't know how you can still suck those things down like that," Mohan said to Sylvie as she walked into the atrium of the rented house. "Yeah, well, I don't know how you get all that grease in your hair," Sylvie replied, walking up to the pedestal ashtray situated next to a glass side table with a retro-style phone on it on the far wall, and flicked her ash. She covered her mouth with the back of her hand and coughed. "Now tell me again what happened to the girl." "She was a huge investment," Mohan continued, following Sylvie down a hallway leading to an eat-in kitchen with skylights. Sylvie set her bag on a chair and opened the refrigerator. As she turned around, she used her cigarette hand to open a bottle of Starbucks brand iced coffee and took a sip. I told you. That doughy-looking oaf fucked the whole transaction up. I think it was a cop or something. He seemed to know what was going on from the moment he spoke to me. Sylvie took a long drag off the cigarette while Mohan considered her, rolling his tongue over his teeth behind his lips. Sunlight glinted off his greased-back ponytail. I couldn't get 2 seats next to each other. When I booked them online, it said we'd be next to each other, but then when I checked in, my seat was changed. I don't know why, Sylvie explained with annoyance. You didn't ask about it? Mohan pressed. Fuck no, I didn't ask. I didn't want to draw any attention to myself. All I had was this bag as a carry-on. That's always a red flag, Sophie explained. Well, where the hell is your suitcase? You were there a week. I know you took a suitcase when you left, Mohan pressed further. For Christ's sake, Mo, I'm not getting younger. That thing got heavy with all that with all the tchotchke samples you wanted me to bring back for the showroom. I shipped it back so I wouldn't have to worry about carrying it or TSA assholes stealing stuff. It's supposed to arrive tomorrow. I have a tracking number. Sylvie put out her cigarette and lit a fresh one, also a bit bent from her pack. You did what? Mohan was irate. Do you know what those tchotchkes, as you put it, are? Sylvie was starting to get frightened. She thought she was just picking up little statues for the window of the import store Mohan ran as a front to launder the money from their real business dealings. Evidently, she'd been mistaken. Ugly as sin, Mo, that's what those things were, Sylvie offered, trying to mask her fear. Mohan slammed a balled fist on the counter. Damn it, Sylv! You better hope they show up tomorrow and in one piece. They should have fit in your carry-on. Those things are filled with vials of a designer virus. Mohan made eye contact with Sylvie and held it for a long, uncomfortable period of time. Sylvie sucked on her cigarette and blew the smoke in Mohan's face. She was nervous about Mohan's temper, but she was also mad. Damn it, Mo, I told you I wasn't interested in muling for you anymore. You're a real dick. You mean I was carrying biowarfare around with me all over Korea? Are you kidding? The last time Sylvie had muled for Mohan, it had been balloons of coke and heroin. She shoved one up her dry old vagina and decided it was a job better left to the young and made the 2 girls she had purchased and was bringing back swallow the rest of them. It was a mess. The balloons burst in both girls before they could get to Tijuana, and they died. She had never seen so much foamy vomit in her life. It had cost Sylvie 6 times as much as she had originally been quoted by the coyote for transport to get rid of the bodies. When she got back, she told Mohan she wouldn't be doing any more muling after that. She had told him he needed to find someone else. They had fought over it. He said she was the only one he trusted. She had told him to shove the crap up his own ass or find a new partner. Sylvie stared at Mohan now with a hot glare. How many other times have you tricked me like that? She asked him, lip twitching. Mohan let out an exasperated breath and shook his head at her. That's the only time, you stupid bitch. I didn't know I was getting this stuff until 2 days before you left. I wouldn't have even told you about it, except now they might not make it here at all, let alone in one piece. Mohan lied. Sylvie had unwittingly muled for Mohan at least 3 other occasions and had had no idea. It gave Mohan a deep pleasure to pull the wool over on Sylvie. It was a secret joke he had with himself. And that's the problem, Mo. How am I supposed to trust you when you don't tell me everything? I tell you everything. I show you everything. We're in this 50-50. It's half my money, too. Sylvie smacked her palm on the kitchen table for emphasis. Dursic walked past them both and down a small flight of stairs from a landing in the back corner of the kitchen. He returned in a couple moments with 2 giant Rottweilers. Sylvie and Mohan were staring each other down. The dogs ran up to Sylvie, sniffing her up and down. Sylvie bent over to let the dogs lick her face. How are Mommy's boys? Good boys, did you miss me? Sylvie cooed at the dogs as they licked her face and hands and legs. Mohan turned away in disgust. Mom, I told you, it grosses me out when you let them lick your mouth, Mohan said, looking away from Sylvie and moving toward the refrigerator. And I told you not to call me Mom anymore. We're business partners. No one needs to know you came out of my womb. Dursic laughed. Sylvie snarled at him. Shut up, you doof. And don't you go talking about that with anyone. Dursic stopped laughing. Sorry, Sylv. It's just that I don't think anyone would believe it anyway, he said sheepishly. Believe what? Sylvie asked. That anyone ever wanted to stick their dick in you, Mohan spat at her. Come on, Mo, that's no way to speak to your mommy, Dursic said to him, half serious, half taunting. Mohan wasn't amused, but Sylvie had a satisfied little smirk. Gotta respect your elders, Momo, Sylvie chided Mohan. I'm going to my room. Mohan grabbed a beer and opened it on the lip of the counter before brushing past Dursic and heading up the stairs to the upper level of the house. That's right, go to your room, and no dinner for you either, Sylvie yelled after him jokingly, pleased to have bested her son once again. Then she dug into her pocket and pulled out Robin's crumpled plane ticket and handed it to Dursic. Dursic smoothed it out and looked it over. What's this? He asked her. Ugh, that shithead boy of mine never gives me any credit. He's going to be the death of me. That's the doughy oaf's plane ticket. That's his name, right there. Sylvie pointed to Robin's name printed on the ticket. Robin Randall. What a stupid-sounding name. See what you can find out about this asshole. I'm pretty sure he was headed to Detroit. I heard him talking about getting back to the Detroit home office on Monday to someone on the phone while we were waiting to board in Korea. See what you find. Sylvie instructed Dursic in a low voice, so Mohan definitely wouldn't be able to overhear. Dursic folded the ticket and stuffed it in his wallet. Shoving the wallet back in his pocket, he replied to Sylvie without looking at her. Yes, ma'am, not a problem. You want him taken care of? No, not yet at least. Just find out who he is. Find out if he's a cop or just some regular asshole. Sylvie walked into an adjacent room and opened a set of French doors to a screened-in sun porch. The dogs followed her and stood waiting to be let out into the backyard garden. Sylvie opened the door for the dogs, who ran out into the space lush under Sylvie's green thumb, happily. Dursic stood in the doorway between the kitchen and sitting room, looking into the sun porch at Sylvie. And Dursic, Sylvie said, turning around to face him, lighting another cigarette. Yes, ma'am. Dursic, don't draw a lot of attention. Until this package arrives in one piece tomorrow and I find out what the hell Mo is doing with a stockpile of designer virus, and we know who this clown is, I don't even want a mouse whispering about this. The girl cost a lot. We paid for some procedures, plus she was North Korean. She was a special order. Got it. Don't worry, ma'am. I got my ways. Yeah, that's what I'm counting on, she said, expelling a long stream of smoke from her lungs. Dursic turned and let himself out of the house. Sylvie waited to hear his charger back out of the driveway and pull down the street before she headed for the stairs to continue the conversation with Mohan. The dogs were laying under the shade of a Japanese maple she had manicured just so. As Sylvie mounted the top stair, Mohan was coming out of the bathroom. He looked at his mother and shook his head at her. Don't you shake your head at me, you lying sack of shit, Sylvie said to him between trying to catch her breath. Lying sack of shit? I didn't lie to you about anything. I just didn't tell you everything. Mohan turned to face his mother straight on. Same thing. It was a deception. Oh, yeah? And you're one to lecture me on deception? Business is business, Mo. You got to be 100% with me, or our business isn't going to last much longer. What the hell are you talking about, you old fool? It was better for you to not know anything about the transaction. That way you wouldn't be lying if you'd gotten caught with them. You're not as good a liar as you think you are, you know. Mohan turned to go into his room. Sylvie followed, standing in his doorway, leaning against the jamb. What are you talking about, not a good liar? Mohan was removing the plastic from fresh dry cleaning and hanging it in his closet. He didn't turn to look at his mother as he continued. I mean, your voice changes pitch when you're putting on one of your street theater shows, and your left pinky twitches when you're bluffing, and your lip trembles when you're scared. By the way, why are you scared of me? Mohan hung the last shirt in the closet and turned around to look at Sylvie, who was now tapping her foot. Only someone who is around me all the time would know those things, Mo, she replied coldly. Mohan tipped his head to one side and pursed his lips in impatience. Oh, come on, Mom. You're lying to yourself right now. What would you have thought if you had gotten caught with those statues and they told you what was in them? Sylvie thought for a minute. I would have thought Sang was a sick fuck and that you were an idiot. No, you wouldn't have. You would have thought it was a plot by Koreans to undermine the U.S., and you would have said that to the authorities. You would have passed a lie detector because you wouldn't have been lying. You were better off not knowing. But you just couldn't follow directions. And now we have to wait and see if the package arrives tomorrow like you say it's supposed to. I'm almost afraid to ask, how much did it cost to ship? Not as much as I thought it was going to be. Those things were heavy. Seriously, Mom, how much? 600 and some change. It was supposed to take a week. Geez, Mom, a fucking week? Did you wrap them up so they wouldn't get damaged? Did you pack the box? What did you do for clothes for a week? I wrapped each one of my clothes and put them in the suitcase, then packed bubble wrap around it all and closed it up. I've shipped back my bag before. It got here just fine. And where are the vials? Are those things like those puzzle boxes your Uncle Mark used to make? Sylvie was picturing the ugly little figurines in her mind's eye, trying to remember if there had been any seams. They're mechanized. There's a button on each of them that's hidden. And when you press it, the door pops open and there's a lead box inside. The vial is inside the lead box. No wonder they're so damn heavy. Why lead? I don't know. I guess it's a joke. It's not like that shit is radioactive or anything. It's a virus. Mohan shrugged. Mo, that doesn't make sense. Why are you bringing over a virus anyway? Whose job is this? Sylvie was skeptical of the whole story and was beginning to suspect her stupid son had himself involved in something they were all going to regret. You remember Sang, right? Yeah, he's a little prick who sold me the statues. Well, Sang has a second cousin that evidently is a mole at the CDC or some such bullshit, Mohan recounted. You mean this is supposed to be some epidemic to be unleashed? Sylvie was disgusted. This was beyond even her sensibilities. No, he said they're trying to study it or something. I don't know. I guess his cousin is a double agent or some shit. And you think anyone will let your ass know such information? Sylvie pressed her son, who she could tell was starting to doubt himself by the tone of his voice. Yeah, I don't know, and I don't care. I just know $3 million is a lot to pay for 6 little statues. Mohan finished. $3 million. Were you paid up front? Sylvie prodded. Hell no. I was supposed to put the statues in the locked front window case in the next couple days and label them as some Ming Dynasty rare antiques or some shit, and Sang's cousin is supposed to come in and buy them from me, Mohan explained. For $3 million? We've never carried anything that expensive in the shop. What's this cousin's name? Sylvie interrogated. That's the beauty of it. I'm not supposed to put a price on them. They're supposed to just be like a display. I don't even know the cousin's name. I just have a couple time frames that he or she might come in and a secret code phrase. They're going to haggle with me on the price. First, like offer $500,000 for the set, and I'm supposed to go real high, and we finally settle on $3 million. Mohan sounded like he was trying to convince not only his mother but himself that this was a good idea. So, you mean to tell me you don't know this person's name, or if they are a man or a woman, or even when they're supposed to come get these things and we're supposed to hold on to these packages of unknown sickness that could kill both us before we even see a dime? Sylvie was incredulous. And you were mad at me about the girl? That little twat was chump change in comparison to this shit. Mo, she cost $750,000 after the eye job, skin bleaching, and fee to the North Koreans, and travel expenses. That reminds me, can she identify you? Mohan asked his mother. No, I don't think so. I never contacted her directly from my phone or laptop. It was always third party who passed on the directions to her. She only saw my face at the terminal, and we never actually spoke. We were supposed to be seated next to each other. I don't know what happened. Sylvie was nervous. It was a lie. She had texted the girl just before they got off the plane, telling her to meet her at the Starbucks kiosk just past customs, but she hadn't used the number associated with the phone. She had used her line 2 number to send the text. Hopefully, that would be enough. She already had canceled the account and removed the app from her phone and put in a new SIM card. The old SIM card she had cracked in half, stuffed one half between the cushions on the LAX shuttle, and tossed the other half out the window on the highway on the way home. Well, if you say so. Either way, we both should probably lay low for the next week or so until the bag shows up and we know something. Mohan opened a mini fridge under a nightstand and pulled out another beer. You're getting a beer gut, Sylvie told him. Yeah? Well, you look like a leather bag and you sound like a barking man. Sylvie just looked at her son and left the room. The dogs were barking. Sylvie stepped up to the window to the left of her bed and looked out into the yard in the direction of the barking dogs. She could see a young Asian man pinned up against the wall. A short length of rope was dangling from the top of the wall. Sylvie pulled a fresh pack of cigarettes from a dish on her nightstand and opened it, pulling out one fresh, straight cigarette. A book of matches sat next to the dish. She struck one and lit the cigarette, screwing up her face at the taste of sulfur from the match tip. Well, what the fuck do we have here? She said out loud to no one. She could hear Mohan's door open and his footfalls toward her room. The door opened and Mohan had an urgent expression on his face. Mom, who the fuck's out there? I don't know, but stop calling me Mom. We have company. Sylvie blew smoke out the window without looking back at her son. Mohan turned back towards his room. I'm getting my gun, he said. Meet you downstairs. Sylvie opened the top drawer of her nightstand and fished out a small pearl-handled pistol. She opened the chamber to check that it was loaded. It was. She snapped the chamber shut and tucked the gun in the back of her waistband, then headed down the stairs slowly. Mohan was already in the yard with his gun drawn. Kinney and Klein were growling low, sitting to either side of a young, slender Asian man with a flat expression, wearing rock-climbing gloves and a tracksuit. Mohan was breathing heavily, staring the man down. Sylvie approached in a patient manner, stopping just next to Klein and stroking his head. She took a long drag off her cigarette and blew it in the intruder's face. He didn't even blink. Sylvie nodded at him in approval. "So, just who do we have here? I know you're not a guest or a friend of my partner here," she said, nodding toward Mohan. "Guests and friends knock on the front door." The man remained silent. Sylvie took another step towards him. They were about the same height, 5'7", 5'8" or so. Her face was only a foot away from his. She took another drag and blew it directly in his eyes. This time he blinked and shook his head a bit. "I'm looking for my kid brother's ball," the man said flatly, without any detection of an accent of any kind. "Is that so?" Sylvie replied. "Last I checked, Phil and Buck didn't have any kids, and the house on the other side has been empty for a month." Sylvie took another drag. Phil and Buck were an old gay couple who spent more time on beaches in Mexico than they did in their house, and they hated children. The house on the other side had been vacant since the last L.A. brat that lived there got dumped by her rap star boyfriend and he stopped paying her bills. The closest kids, old enough to be playing ball outside on the street, were at least 2 blocks away. "You're going to be looking for your balls in a minute if you don't tell us who you are and what you're doing, real fast," Mohan offered from behind his mother. The young man shifted his head slightly to look at Mohan over Sylvie's shoulder, but didn't say anything. Sylvie leaned in and grabbed the young man by the crotch and squeezed. He winced. "So what's your story?" Sylvie sneered in his face. She knew her breath stank. She hadn't had a chance to brush her teeth yet since they'd gotten back to the house. The young man wrinkled his nose at the stink of her sour old mouth. "I'm nobody in particular," he replied. Sylvie squeezed tighter. "Is that so? Well, if you don't start talking here in a minute, you're going to be a eunuch," Sylvie offered in a sweet tone of voice. "Max, my name's Max," he finally said. Sylvie released his crotch and stepped back, taking a drag off her cigarette, then stamping it out on the ground with her right toe. "Okay, Max. What are you doing here?" Sylvie licked her lips. Max looked unbothered, other than a small bead of sweat starting to form along his upper lip. "I'm not doing anything," he answered. Mohan was annoyed. He pushed past his mother and smacked Max across the face with the side of his gun. It made a loud crack, and blood trickled from Max's nose. He licked at it. "Trust me, you don't want to hit me again," he told Mohan without emotion. "Oh, yeah? And just why doesn't he want to hit you again?" Sylvie asked. Max slowly shifted his gaze back to look Sylvie in the eye. "Because I know what you have in there, and I'm the one here to pick it up." Max waited for his words to sink in. Sylvie smiled and addressed her son. "You hear that, Mo? He knows what we have in there." Sylvie turned back towards Max. "Just what do we have in there?" she asked Max. "Exactly. You have no idea what it is you have in there. You're both idiots." Mohan smacked him again across the other side of his face with his gun, this time busting his lip. Blood trickled down Max's chin. He wiped it with the back of his hand and looked at the smear. "I told you, you didn't want to hit me again." Mohan just laughed. "Yeah, why not? What are you going to do?" he asked Max. Max smiled. "Look, you moron, I'm not going to do anything, but my associates will." Max remained smiling. Sylvie was starting to get nervous. Mohan was oblivious. "And who are these associates? And what do you think they can do to me?" Mohan chuckled. "My associates are the person to whom those ugly little statues you have belong." Mohan stopped laughing. Sylvie took her free hand and pushed his arm down to lower his weapon. "Let's go inside," Sylvie offered, and motioned to Kinney and Klein to follow her. "Max, you walk ahead of us," Sylvie instructed. "With pleasure." Max headed toward the open door onto the screened porch. Once Max was on the porch, Sylvie nodded to Mohan, who grabbed an extension cord that was hanging on a hook on the back of the house and used it to tie up Max. Max didn't even struggle. Mohan and Sylvie dragged Max into the kitchen, where Sylvie dug through a drawer, producing a fistful of zip ties. She handed them to Mohan, who continued to further secure Max's hands and ankles. He sat Max on a chair. Sylvie circled them, lighting a fresh cigarette. "Those things are going to kill you," Max said to her. She just chuffed. "There's a better chance I'm going to kill you first," she told him. "Now, who are these associates of yours?" But before he could say anything else, Mohan punched him in the face and knocked him out. Then he grabbed a plastic bag from under the sink and went to pull it over his head, but Sylvie stopped him. She looked at her son sadly. "Look, you don't know what we're dealing with here. Killing him might not be the best idea," she explained to her son. Mohan looked at her with disgust. "Old woman, I think you're going to regret not letting me just shoot him in the yard." Sylvie sighed heavily and touched her son's cheek. He recoiled. "One of these days you'll learn," she told him. "One of these days you're going to find yourself in a nursing home," Mohan answered. "Where's Dursik?" "Dursik had other business," Sylvie said. "That dick is never around when he can be useful," Mohan complained. "Dursik is exactly where he needs to be. Now who are these fucks you've been doing business with behind my back?" Sylvie went to a cupboard and produced a roll of duct tape. She proceeded to use the tape to gag the unconscious Max. She used the rest of the roll of tape to secure him in his chair to the island to the center of the kitchen. Mohan looked on in bewilderment, having a flashback. His father used to do that to him when he was a kid and didn't obey. Big Mo had been in prison for the past 11 years after getting caught with a gun that shot a cop and without an alibi for the night of the murder. The last time Mohan had visited his father, Big Mo had told him not to bother coming back to see him again, that he had never liked him in the first place, and that he was doing just fine on the inside. Mohan had responded in much the same way as he was now, watching his mother secure Max. Sylvie brushed past Mohan and started up the stairs, motioning for him to follow her. Mohan turned slowly and followed like a puppy. Kinney and Klein sat watching Max. Well then. What a story, huh? What a story. What a story.